Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Nike Zoom Freak 4 or the KD15? Let's do it. Welcome back to our channel. Today we are checking out the newest shoes to release in Giannis's and KD's signature lines with Nike. But before I break down the performance side, we'll just kind of knock out some of the basic info first. So the Zoom Freak 4 retails for $130. That is up $10 from last year, so these did get a little price jump. But the KD15s did stay the same price as last year's model, retailing for $150. But just taking a quick look at the appearance for each of these models, I really do like the changes that came to this year's Zoom Freak 4 model. Like, aside from them losing the strap, I was kind of sad to see that go. But the reverse swoosh running along the side of the shoe is just sick. Like, they made it a lot bigger on this year's model just compared to the Zoom Freak 3s. And the reverse swoosh has now shown up on 3 of his 4 shoes from Giannis's line. So Nike even put in the description on this year's shoe that, that reverse swoosh is a signature of the Zoom Freak line. So I'm assuming that means we're going to see it more going forward. Count me in. I love it. I think it's really cool. But you're also going to have a mismatching setup for the tongue on these with like his player logo on the right side. Then you're going to see a compass on the other. Then along the heel is going to be some freak text just around that collar. And then this shoe does have some ridges kind of built into the midsole that looks pretty cool. And they actually have like a functional purpose on the shoe. I'm going to hit on that more in a second, but definitely not a bad look for this year's Zoom Freak 4 model. But now switching it over to check out the KD15s. I love the look for these too. Like, I was sad to see the strap go from the KD14s. And I guess these shoes kind of had that in common because the Zoom Freak 4s, they lost the strap too from the Zoom Freak 3s. But I always do love the strap on basketball shoes. I think it's a nice touch. But this is a lower release than we've seen in KD's line in a minute. Like, the last shoe that released as an actual just like low top from his shoe line, from his signature line, was I want to say like the KD11s, I think. And I do kind of prefer low top shoes, so that's definitely all good with me. But you are going to get some KD branding on the tongue, and a Nike swoosh is going to show up on the upper, just like sitting on top of this overlay. Then you'll see a reverse Nike swoosh on the inner side too. Then on the heel is going to be a curved setup with some easy text on that pull tab. KD kind of goes by the nickname Easy Money Sniper on socials, so I guess that's where it comes from as kind of a nickname for him. But plenty of details on both of these models. But now let's see how each shoe holds up on the court. So now getting into more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning, we have 2 different setups today, so I'll just kind of lay that out there for you first. The Zoom Freak 4 is going to use a lightweight midsole that is hollowed out under the forefoot, and that's where you'll see 2 Zoom Air units kind of positioned at, and that allows for these Zoom Air units to compress just under the weight and expand to help with energy return. Not really a lot changed from this year's Zoom Freak 4 model compared to the Zoom Freak 3 from last year, and just like how it was put together. But now looking at the KD15s, these are going to have a full-length Air Zoom Strobel unit that is stitched directly to the upper just to help cut out unnecessary weight and provide full foot responsiveness. And then along with that is going to be some foam that runs the entire length of the shoe that is meant to add a soft, comfortable sensation and just give back optimal energy. So between these 2 shoes, both are going to give back, or both are going to give you kind of like more of a padded feeling up in the forefoot just compared to being more of a balanced setup. But I am kind of higher on the KD15s just overall. Like, I feel like Giannis's line has always been pretty average for cushioning. Like, last year I did knock the Zoom Freak 3s just because it felt like the heel lacked a little bit with them loading up the forefoot, like just the front portion of the shoe. But I still didn't love how the front of the shoe played either. Like, it was good, but nothing too special. Just not a ton of bounce, not compared to some other models out there, like the one that they are going against today. Like, the KD15 is a little bit weird to me just because, like, just like the Zoom Freak 4, it is mostly the same exact setup from last year's KD14 model, but that unit in the forefoot is pretty bouncy. Like, just walking around and jumping around in these, the spring is like definitely in there. You can feel it, and the overall cushioning under your foot feels better too. Like, the heel is going to be a little bit more padded, so is like the collar, just like the sock liner, just gives you a softer feel. But like, using our durometer to check out the midsole for these shoes, the Zoom Freak 4 actually put out a softer reading at 36. That is a touch below the average, and a few ticks, just a few ticks below the KD15s, which read at 39. And that doesn't always indicate how these shoes play, and that definitely doesn't indicate how they play today. And it's not like I want to go all in on the Zoom Freak 4s as if they're like bad. It's just the KD15s are just better for your overall impact protection, just kind of like that all-around softness. So I am hoping after 2 years of using the exact same cushioning setup, Nike will try something different in Giannis's line for the Zoom Freak 5s. For materials and support, looking at the Zoom Freak 4s first, the biggest difference or just like change to this section would be that they lost the strap that was on last year's model. But aside from that, these do have like a really similar build, just kind of positioned a little bit different. So the toe area is going to be where you see a white textile that does feel pretty thin, but not nearly as thin as that like green section in the middle of the upper. That spot is actually transparent, so you don't have to worry about, getting air to your foot. it's kind of built in for that portion. But around the back half of the shoe, you'll see it's more filled in that white section. So I mean, even with the Zoom Freak 4s losing the strap, there's still like multiple nice support features on this shoe. Like first, you're gonna have like that same outrigger that was there on the Zoom Freak 3s. That kind of extends out from the shoe in that spot where you see like that green air pocket. It's exposed a little bit on the midsole, and that's just there to kind of give you better balance and also help brace your foot on some of those tougher movements. Then you're gonna see a black overlay running across the toes, but the big Nike swoosh is where the bulk of that help is gonna come from whenever you're looking at like the support. Like it's gonna extend onto the upper, and it really does a great job of keeping your foot from like trying to slide out to the side. And these have a really nice heel counter to go along with it, so nothing really bad to say about the Zoom Freak 4 for this section. But now switching it over to look at the KD15s. Similar to what Giannis has going on with his line, this year's model did lose the strap that was there on last year's KD14 model. But the materials, as for those, I mean, you're going to get a multi-layer mesh upper that is meant to be lightweight and give you that already broken in type feel. And Nike wanted to give you something breathable that would also just like help reduce your movements. And there are some pieces on here that they added to help with that. But the one common problem that I have seen people struggle with is the heel slippage. And I did have a little trouble keeping my ankle from sliding up at first. And that was just like really weird to me because like, I mean, this shoe is actually crafted to help support your Achilles tendon. And KD's even been dealing with injuries like along those lines. So it kind of threw me off a little bit why the shoe might be struggling back there. But I mean, I've found that if you really take the time to lace these up tight, that should take away most of your movement back there in that section. And it's not like Nike didn't put anything on this shoe otherwise for support. Like you're gonna have a midfoot containment band that you should feel like start to lock your foot in once you pull on those laces. Then in addition to that, there's a Nike swoosh that's sitting on top of this overlay that just helps keep your foot from sliding to the side just more than it should. So I mean Nike, I did have some initial concerns, I guess, on this shoe, but it cleaned up pretty quick for me. Like I didn't really struggle with the support much after that. But I mean, with some extra pieces going on to this KD15 model, they are going to be our heavier shoe today, weighing 424 grams for a size 10.5. That's still not bad though. It's a little bit more for a low top, but it's definitely going to be lighter than last year's model. And the Zoom Freak 4 shaved off some weight too, weighing 382 grams for the same exact size. I don't really feel a huge difference between these models on the court. The big takeaway is that neither model is heavy, so that was nice. To finish off with traction, once again, I'll kind of lay out the patterns first. So the Zoom Freak 4 went with a computer-generated outsole that is meant to give you multi-directional traction in a pattern that resembles a topographical map. And the whole purpose of this traction pattern is to help optimize ground contact, just to give you better change of direction opportunities. And then looking at the KD15s, Nike used some grooves and some ridges in the sole to help provide multi-directional traction. And I mean, for the Zoom Freak 4s, they pretty much copied the same idea from the Zoom Freak 3s last year. And between the cushion and the traction, like I haven't found a model in Giannis's line that has like really crushed it in those categories yet. Like they feel pretty good. I'd say relatively consistent, but I mean, they aren't great. Like I don't have anything amazing or I guess bad to say for the most part on that line. But I mean, KD's line has been killing it for traction. The KD14 setup, I loved that, like with the ovals and the lines. They played really great, had really nice bite on the court, and that is going to continue on with the KD15s. Like, even with the whole different setup, these still grip the floor really well, but like, to finish off with sizing on these shoes, I did go true to size on both, and you get a little less than a thumb's width left over for the length on these, but the KD15s, I feel like they're going to be slightly more narrow than the Zoom Freak 4s, so keep that in mind. So for the final ratings, starting off with the appearance, I mean, I really do like the look for both of these models. The reverse swoosh always hits for me, and then KD brought back the low top design. I think they look really clean, so I'm gonna start off with the tie here. But as for cushioning, I mean, both of these shoes are gonna be top loaded, but the spring in the KD15s just feels better to me, so I'm gonna go with the KD15s there. But as for the materials, I mean, both of these shoes, they did lose the strap, but they have some nice layers. I mean, close to the same price point. Neither shoe feels cheap, so I'm gonna come back to a tie again. Then as for the support, I did touch on the heel slippage a little bit for the KD15s, and even though it was an easy fix for me, I guess it's kind of easier whenever you have nothing to worry about. That's pretty much how the Zoom Freak 4 plays, so I'm going to go with Giannis's line for the support section. Then to finish off with traction, I'm definitely going to have to come back to the KD15 there, and that is going to lead to me going with the Nike KD15 as the better shoe to hoop in. I mean, aside from like the support having some minor flaws, everything else checks out on this shoe for the KD15, and I've always loved KD's line for performance. They do great year in and year out. The Zoom Freak 4 is good, but they haven't like really been, I mean, that's kind of where they've been stuck at for the last few months. Like, they've just been playing pretty good, and I am hoping to see some types of strides made to the cushioning or that traction section, and then I'll definitely be feeling them a little bit more. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to drop a follow or subscribe if you like this video, and if you're interested in buying the Nike KD15 and you want to support our channel, just check out the link here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.